Well, hi. Welcome back to It's Not That Deep. I'm your host, Mads, and if you're new here, thank you for listening. This podcast is pretty much a life podcast where I talk about the depths to life and to get out of those depths, to realize that it's not that deep. So, I started this podcast about 4 weeks ago, and it was because I am going through, I'm just like your average Denver gal who is going through a heartbreak that feels like it's never going to end. And about 5 months ago, I went no contact with my ex, and it's been great overall. However, my ex is my landlord. So messy is pretty up there, honestly. It's a little bit messy, it's a little bit not messy. But I kind of think it's just really funny because if you're listening to this and you're like, oh yeah, I've done that before. Like I've dated, the captain of the team or you know, I don't even know I'm going to school, so I gotta not say what I'm thinking. But if you're dating somebody very close to home, like your boss or somebody you shouldn't be, and you did it anyways, cheers, because same. And now we are here unwinding it all and starting over. Like I said in the last episode, it's like a factory reset. But I think right now I'm just going to make fun of it. It's like, girls, I'm just doing this for the plot. I'm just a girl. I'm doing the best I can. If you want the juice on the relationship, listen to episode 1, 2, and 3. It kind of breaks down how we even started breaking up, why it took 2 years to break up, and then like how I fell in love with him. Because ladies, he's 46 years old, and at best on a really good day with a hat, he's maybe a 4. I don't know. Everyone's like, what? And I'm like, maybe it was the money now that I'm thinking about it. I don't know. I do know. There was attachment. I do know. Listen to episode 2 and you'll know exactly how I freaking fell in love with this man. But that is not what today's episode is about. So I'm not going to lie. I recorded a different episode last night, and every episode I re-listen to, right? I don't edit them. I like to raw dog it, and whatever comes out, comes out. But it was annoyingly heavy. And I was like, ugh, I just feel like all my episodes are heavy and not light. And I was fine with it last night. And then I woke up this morning and I was like, yeah, I'm recording something different because I feel something different. And this is how I'm going to go, I think, about most of my podcasts from here on out. I skipped a week because I mentally was not in a good headspace. I didn't want to record, and I didn't know what to record because all of me, and I mean all of me, was missing my ex last week. And I just felt inauthentic, and I felt like, ugh, this just sucks, and I don't want to talk about it on the podcast, and I can't talk about progress because I'm regressing right now. And yeah, so I thought to myself this morning, I was like, I would love to do just like a weekly recap of like, what the hell has happened? Because I'm not going to lie, my life changes daily. My thoughts change daily. Everything just changes in a moment's notice for me. And there are some steady things, obviously, but I just think it'd be fun to chat about the things that happened over the week, because why not? So first and foremost, I have uploaded 0 videos. I have recorded every single episode. And I've not posted, well, not recorded, like camera recorded, and I have not posted any of them, mainly because it's daunting to me and I'm annoyed to do it, so I'm not doing it yet. But if you don't know me, I have typically long ass hair. I have hair down to my ass. It's 22-inch extensions. I'm a hairstylist, by the way, so if you're new and in Denver and looking for a new hairstylist, I might be your gal. But I had 22-inch extensions, and I've had them my entire 7 years of living out here in Colorado. And I've only known myself with long hair. Like, long hair was my identity. And 2 weeks ago, I chopped it the fuck off. Like, I didn't just chop it, like, safe collarbone length or a little lower. Like, I chopped it, think Gracie Abrams. Not even think, like, that's exactly my haircut. I chopped it. I love it. and it just brought out this sassy that I am sassy. I'm a sassy son of a bitch, and I am leaning into that now because I am really kind, and I was thinking about this the other night. Like, I am a kind person, baseline. Like, my soul means well for so many people, but I'm sassy. And not in like a bitch mean, more of like, yeah, if I'm not in on it, I'm not in on it, and you'll know. And yeah, I have more of like a sarcastic banter. Yeah, that's kind of me. So I feel like my hair matches my personality just a little bit more. Everyone kept asking me, including today, my first client, she's like, how do you feel? And that's the number one question, right? Like when you chop your hair like this much, like inches on inches, of course people are going to ask, like, how does it feel? And naturally, lighter. Like, A, I don't have 2 rows of extensions on my head. But B, I don't know if you know this, but hair holds energy. And as a hairstylist, I've known this, right? Like, I know hair holds energy. Hair holds memory. But I just never was, like, at a place, like, not me. Like, I don't need to cut anything out. I don't need to do anything. Like, not in my hair. But the moment that it started, like they heard the scissors cut it, I'm like, fuck yeah. Like I feel free, I feel released, I feel like the shackles are no longer. Like I just feel like it's right. And I feel more like myself. And that's really nice to like have those feelings now, especially with going through heartbreak. And I wanted to touch on this, like the power, and I know I'm a hairstylist, so I'm like, I guess I am selling you on this, but at the same time, not selling you, I'm just telling you my experience. I didn't realize how impactful haircuts are for people. And when I was thinking about cutting my hair, every single time I thought about it, I was like, I'm just doing this because this is what you do when you break up. You have this like crisis and you're like, just chop it off. And now I'm realizing that it's not necessarily a crisis or like I'm doing it because I feel out of control. I did it because I feel so in control. Like I feel so in control of my life for the first time in years. I don't feel like I'm hiding anymore. I always felt like I was hiding parts of my life because it wasn't making sense. Like for one, I was dating a 40-year-old. Like I'm 28 for reference. So he was 17 years older than me. That's something I wasn't like uber proud of. He also didn't look. There was like a looks department that was there that I was like, yeah, I mean, I know that I could do somewhat better, but I love this man. So like a lot of me wanted to promote like this man or like not promote, but like be in public with this man. But at the same time, it was only in public. It was only in certain people's eyes, right? That would be able to see us. And it didn't fit. I always feel like I was hiding things. Like even for example, today, in my 7 years, not even in my 7 years, but in my 4 years of living with my ex, this is the first day that I've received an Amazon package to my house. Like this, my apartment address, I never had like a landing address. I always had like a temporary address. And I'd always send everything to my salon. To even like whenever my grandparents would ask me like, what's your address? I'm like, here's the salon address. Just send it to the salon. I'm always there. Because I would never had like a place to call home. So like all of that's chopped away. And like this is my home and I'm so happy about it. And I just feel lighter and I feel like I just feel a little bit more grown up and just a little more happy, a little more pep in my step and a lot more sassy. I can promise you it brought out a sassiness in me that I love. Also, my friend and I started a book club, and that's like another reason why last week was a bit tough for me and I didn't record. This book that we chose, it's called Origins of You, and it's this book, I'm showing it to the camera, but it's Origins of You. It's a self-help book. It's a popular self-help book, and my group and I read it, and we met up on Sunday. And it was so precious, though, because, like, I have a lot of thoughts around this, but I almost backed out of going because this book for me, and I cannot speak on the other girls in the group, but it was a tough read for me because it started. I am in therapy. I've been going for 2 years now. I've been starting EMDR. So there's been things that I've been working around behind closed doors to find more peace in my life, to find more understanding in my life. And this book just made me like really confused. By the time that I ended the book, I had a headache. I was very understanding. It talks about wounds. That's predominantly what the whole book is about, is finding the origination of like the wound of your childhood or of your past and where that stems from. So there's 5 different ones in this book in particular. My therapist had let me know that it is interchangeable throughout, like, you know, throughout different therapists and terminology wise, but these 5 wounds are worthiness, belonging, prioritization, trust, and safety. And I always thought that like the obvious one was trust, like that's going to be my biggest wound. But to be honest, it wasn't. It was worthiness. And I had like a freight train. I got hit like a freight train. Holy shit. I didn't realize it. And I'm going to get into that a little bit more. But this book club was really cute and fun because we ended up getting ice cream and we met at a park. And I brought flowers for the girls because this was not an easy book to open. It's not ever easy to choose to better yourself, to make change. And that is something that, like, I don't know if you are at home listening to even this podcast, like, not that I'm a self-help anything, but you're doing something to better yourself because you're listening to someone else's story and you're taking something away, and maybe you're going to change one thing, because I will give you advice in these podcasts. But if you've listened to any self-help podcasts, if you've listened to Mel Robbins, that's a popular one, and I do love Mel Robbins, but if you have been to therapy, if you've thought about even going to therapy, if you've bought poetic books that are like self-help, like anything to better or change your version of you now, to understand your past, that is an accomplishment, and you should tell yourself that you're proud of yourself, because it's not easy to pick out your flaws or your faults or go deep into ways that people have treated you or that you've allowed people to treat you, or understanding how your parents weren't or were not present. Like all of that stuff, that shit's tough. So when you're doing it and you do it alone, I see you, and like I definitely recommend finding a therapist because doing it by yourself is hard. But for me, I was so proud of finishing this book. And yeah, it did set me back a little bit with my EMDR session. I ended up having to have a talk session instead. And I'll get all into that. But that was this past week, and that was really fun. And then I realized when we went to the park on Sunday for the book club meeting, I don't go to the park enough. And I went to the park after I have a work from home day on Mondays. And I was like, oh my God, I could just like go to a park, because I always go to coffee shops, but I tap out around 2 hours. Pretty much my butt starts hurting, and then like my drink is out and I just feel weird, so then I leave. And I was like, let me just go to a park. So I went to Cheeseman Park. No, Chatfield. Nah, I don't know what park I went to. But either way, a park in Denver. And I sat and I just watched, honestly, these parents coaching like their kids in soccer and softball, and like pet owners just running with their pets, and like all these kids everywhere. It was just so precious and cute and peaceful. And I got so much done. A lot of like owning a business. So I do own my own hair salon. Being an entrepreneur, there's so much behind the scenes that no one ever knows. Like, yes, the clients are important and that's what brings you the income, obviously, but it's all the work behind the scenes that no one really sees that you have to do, and I have to romanticize it or I won't fucking do it. I love my house, but I'm here a lot, especially nowadays with like, I'm not really dating, and I'm definitely not on the dating apps. I'm trying to like hibernate this next month of March, but I was like, oh, park, let's just go there. And it was so peaceful. And yeah, last week I also finally, and if you are a listener who has been following my life, I mean, following it in general or talks to me in general, but if you don't, I have an apartment complex that is Airbnb friendly. So I finally got my short-term rental license approved, and I finally got my Airbnb going. So now it's just I'm prepping everything for like the listing to go, and that's a big fucking win because I wanted to do this. I started the process in October of last year, and to be honest, when I said October of last year, that's also when I went no contact with my ex. So yeah, your girl was a bit busy trying to not die of sadness. So I'm really proud of that. Got my Airbnb started. And lastly, I started this hormone journey of cutting out caffeination. So it's a part of this book called Hormone Intelligence that my therapist recommended for me to read because I struggle with, I got diagnosed with PMDD, which a lot of women have. It's premenstrual dysphoric disorder, and it's where you have like really, really intense mood swings, and you are either really, really heavy on your period or your periods are very unpredictable. And there's a lot more other symptoms to it, but this is like 2 weeks though. It's the week before your period and the week of your period. So 2 weeks out of the 4 weeks of the month, you're never feeling sane. It's only week 1 that you feel really good. Like right when you end your period, it's like, okay, this is my solid week where my hormones are level, where I feel the most ambitious, where I feel the most sane. And then the next week you're anticipating the week before your period, and then the week before your period you're feeling all the feelings, and the week of your period you're finally like in your menstrual cycle and you're like, okay, here we are. And then it's restart. And so I have been on a journey since November. I started acupuncture to start, and then I take tinctures, which is like little droplets of like Vitex that you put in water and you take every morning and night. And it's just been like this journey, and I think the last thing is going to be caffeination. And it's not necessarily like I need to cut it out completely, but I did cut it out last week, Monday through Friday. Weekends are my freedom to do whatever, but I will say I definitely had withdrawals. Also, caffeination withdrawal symptoms are obviously the headaches, fatigue, irritability, and then depression. So that was another thing. Like on Wednesday, I was like, okay. And it said the worst that you'll have, like the peak of it all will be hours of 20 to 50. And I was like at peak on Wednesday. I was like, oh shit, I'm really sad. I'm really in my feels. And yeah, come Thursday, got the best night's sleep. I only had one headache at like 3 p.m. And then Friday, no headache, had the best fucking sleep of my life. That is almost why I am continuously cutting it out. So this week, today's Wednesday, haven't had any caffeine, and I really wanted caffeine for this podcast. I wanted an iced latte, but instead I remembered, I was like, no, but by Friday you're gonna have the best sleep of your entire life again. And that's kind of why I'm keeping it cut out. It's also like a 6-week journey. So this is week 2, and it's not just with caffeination, it's also with a diet. It's pretty much the diet that I normally have. It's a med diet. But anyways, these are the things that I've changed. This is the last week, by the way. I would say the last week and a half, almost 2 weeks. But that's what's going on with me. And I kind of want to get back into like getting deeper into this podcast now that we're about 18 minutes in. This is where the depth starts to come into play. This is kind of where the heavy is going to hit. And I wanted to let you know about all of the things that I did last week because that book club was pretty intense, and it gave me some perspective on why I might have been feeling the way I was feeling. It also started to make me think, this book specifically started to make me think, it started to make me question if I did enough in the relationship, because there is a couple in here that the author, the therapist, was using as an example. And I will say, the person's name is the name of my ex, and it was triggering because I started feeling, I'm very empathetic. I have a huge heart, and I started reading this, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, I didn't know about his wounds, and like, I didn't know that this is maybe what he was feeling, and did I give it enough effort? And then I started almost like reverting backwards on all of the last 5 months of me going forward. So the irony is that I read this self-help book, and it was almost like everything that I untwisted was getting twisted again. And I don't want that. Like, I'm doing so much to not be like that, to not go backwards in life. And the beauty is that, I was able to talk to my therapist on Monday, and she helped me um, not get things twisted. We kept it very light and, talked a lot of things through. But I think what was getting me last week was because I dated my landlord, which was a choice, and now I'm not dating him, again, another choice. Um, I'm just watching life change in front of me. Like, might cry on this one. Because I have emotion around it, because I am still grieving the loss of us. But it's not just a loss of like him and I. It's the loss of, I used to run the rooftop at the building I rent from. So it's a loss of that. It's a loss of, I was pretty much the manager of the building, and now I don't even know what's going on. So like, there's a lot of people that are leaving the building, and there's a lot of change happening. And it's the first time in our breakup that I'm not involved. Like, it's not even involved, he's not told me any of it. And it's sad. It sucks. Like, you go from being this person's best friend, and even though like 2 years ago he asked me for open, we still communicated, well, what he wanted to, but we were still each other's like first calls. So like, if I had a win in the salon, I'd call him and I'd just like let him know about it. Or if I had a really bad day in the salon, I'd call him about it. Or if like, if he had these exciting things happen, he would tell me about it. We were always each other's like cheerleaders. That we did really well. We always cheered each other on in our businesses. So I think that that's where it gets really shitty, when I'm still in the building and watching things change and not be a part of it anymore. It hurts my heart, but it's for the better, and it's gonna be okay. And for the time being, I am staying put with my salon where it's located right now, and I'm staying there for the rest of the year. So it's just gonna be what the process is. Like, I'm gonna have to watch these changes happen. I'm gonna have to see him more once his other job ends soon. It's going to be even more seeing him. So like, it's not gonna be fun, but I also don't want to put the stress and pressure. Like, I love doing hair, so when I go and do hair at the salon, I go and do hair at the salon, and then I leave. And I think that that's like what I'm really trying to understand, is how to do both. I'm now mentally at a better place where I can do both, but it's just watching these changes happen and then putting narratives like in my head that aren't true, or they are true, but there's nothing I can do about it, right? I think what I was realizing was this book, Origins of You, did open up a lot of wounds and made me question a lot of things about myself, made me question a lot of like my childhood. It made me think about a lot of my childhood, which brought up like friendships and family and ex-partners. And it also brought up things in my salon. Like, it brought up feelings around my salon and clients. And like, yeah, it was good things, but I started thinking like, did I even do enough in the relationship? Am I even myself? And that's when I would suggest, if you're reading self-help books, if you're doing all of this work and you're finding that you're not progressing and you're kind of like reverting and not doing well, I would recommend taking a break and just living. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm understanding that I have understood that my love with my ex was very conditional, and this will lead me into like the learnings and the changes of like what has come from all of this relationship and with my ex, but also like with my life in general. I was saying how much he gave me conditional love, and I always give unconditional love. But what I realize is that I give myself conditional love. Like, I love myself conditionally. And I'll tell you how I fucking came about this. Last night, I had a dream, and it's like fuzzy, and it's not all there because I didn't write it down, but I had a dream of my Nana, my late Nana, and great grandpa, and they were both telling me in their home, they had a duplex in my hometown, and it was so vivid. They looked at me and they were telling me that everything that I do is earned, and that if I don't earn it, I tell myself that I'm not enough and that I didn't do good enough. And I jolted up because my alarm went off, which I'm not an alarm person, but I slept straight through, probably because I'm not drinking caffeine. But I jolted up and I literally out loud said, "What the fuck?" Because I had the epiphany. Like, I love myself conditionally, but I love everybody else unconditionally, faults and all. But apparently for me, if I'm not perfect, then it's like you don't deserve any of the things. For example, I do goals all the fucking time. Like, a lot of people do, obviously, but like the goals that I give myself are pretty intense, and there's like 20 of them all the time. All the time. But everything's earned. And I know that that's good for discipline. I'm a very disciplined girl, so like it's not like I need to work on being disciplined. I actually need to work on maybe just giving myself unconditional love and telling myself that I deserve this no matter what, because I'm me, because I deserve this. I am loved enough for this, and you didn't have to earn this to be loved. And so I told my client that today, and she goes, "Wow, that was a pretty deep dream." And I was like, "Well, that is valid, and that's also it's also going on my podcast today, because it was a very deep dream for me to realize like the connections are just these wounds of like worthiness, and I really want to like focus on that. And I realized also with all of that earnings, right, the conditional love and not loving myself unconditionally, I realized that I need to start being gentle to myself. And I asked my therapist on Monday, I said, "Is there anything you advise me to do? Because I feel like I should be doing something, but I don't know what it is." And then she goes, "Well, she's like, have you finished that self-compassion workbook?" And I said, "Nope." She's like, "There you go." And that was that. And I was like, okay, so I'm going to go to the park after this and work on my self-compassion workbook. And I started realizing like every podcast that I do, it's called It's Not That Deep, but we go into the depths of life. We go into the deep and the gross and the icky and the sticky, but we come out on the other side. But I realized that I don't really leave you with like good feels at the end. And I just kind of tell you it's not that deep, which can be a little toxic sometimes. So what I want to leave you with on every episode is an intention for your week, an intention for your day, an intention for your month. I'm going to be doing weekly for the podcast, but if you are like, no, you know what, that intention that Mads gave the last week is going to roll with me the rest of the month, keep it. Intentions are beautiful. I sometimes go into yoga with intentions, but most times they provide intentions for you about how you're going to go through the class, through life, on your day-to-day. And the intention that came to me on Monday was giving grace. Because I realized how much I don't do that for myself, but how I do that for others. And you're probably like, "Oh yeah, I do it for myself all the time. I give myself so much grace," but maybe you don't give it to others. So just giving grace. And examples of this is for yourself, to give grace to yourself. Acknowledge your imperfections. Acknowledge them. And that's all you have to do. Self-compassion is another way of giving yourself grace. Forgiving yourself. Like I, for example, am forgiving myself for not knowing what I know now, but my younger self did exactly what she needed to do, and I forgive her for dating somebody who treated her so not to the way she needed. And another way, giving yourself grace, which is very popular, but practicing self-care. And this can look at like different things for different people. Meditation, washing your face, giving yourself an extra 10 minutes in the shower, doing a little yoga stretching, going on a walk. Anything that will give you practicing that self-care. So those are going to be giving grace to yourself, and to give grace to others, listen empathetically. Listening is probably one of the hardest things people don't do. People listen, but they're not really listening. So listen empathetically, have a big heart for them. Practice forgiveness. You know, maybe don't be forgiving your ex right away, speaking to myself, but practice forgiveness with the person that cut you off in the road. Don't let it hold space in you. Just practice forgiveness. Be kind. Honestly, my biggest thing in life is when you are kind, good things come your way. I smile at everybody, every time, everywhere, because why not? Be kind. And then offer support. How can I support you in this time? I have a lot of friends going through either breakups or divorces or just heavy things in life. And sometimes I don't know what it is that they need from me. And I'll just say, how can I support you in this time? Or like, what can I do to help you in this time? And sometimes it's just listening. And sometimes they need a margarita. And sometimes they need to meet you on the mat. You know, you just never know. So that is episode 4. I wanted it to be a little bit lighter. I wanted it to be a little bit more structured. I hope that this episode is something that you gained insight in my life, because that's part of this. I want you to know me a little more. And I also wanted you to gain a little bit more compassion for yourself as you're going through life too. So reminder that everything is temporary, and I'll see you next week.